welcome to Your Mac Life for Wednesday, February the 22nd, 2017. This is show number 1125. I am your host, Shawn King. As always, thank you guys for being tuned in, whether you're listening into the archive or you were one of the cool kids tuned in live to the show right now. We have, as always, two chat rooms open up. You can join us in the IRC chat room. You can get into the IRC very, very easily. You go to the website, yourmaclifeshow.com. Right there off the top, you can see the video, and below the video, Monty has set up a very, very easy way to get into IRC. And you're not going to be an IRC type person. You're not going to know anything about IRC. It's just a neat way to communicate to the other listeners of the show. If you're a Slack user, you can go to the Slack room at yourmaclife.slack.com. That works sometimes, depending on whether you're already logged in Slack or not. If it doesn't work, send me an email, and I will send you a direct invite to the Slack chat room. The advantage of the Slack chat room is that things we post there pop up immediately, like URLs and graphics and that kind of stuff, which you can't do in IRC. And the Slack room is open 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. So anytime you want to jump in there and chat to other people or myself, I'm always on the Slack room. So you can chat anytime during the week if you so choose. Or via Twitter, Shawn King, twitter.com/Shawn King, if you want to tweet with me or at me. On tonight's show, we'll talk to our good friend Jim Dalrymple of The Loop at loopinsight.com. Last week he didn't make it because he was in a bar. He said he was in a bar and he was getting bad reception. I think he was just drunk and didn't want to do it. That's the story I'm going with. But Jim will be on tonight's show. We're going to talk about Apple Park. No, it's not a new amusement theme park. It is, Apple has announced today that their new Apple campus is this April. I'm sure there'll be a big, huge event at Apple. This is the culmination of Steve Jobs' dream that Apple would have this kind of facility for the company to show off to its staff and to everyone else in the world. It's a beautiful, spectacular looking building. The technology that's gone into this is as detailed as the technology that goes into anything Apple's done. I've been following the stories about the building of this space for the last while now. And Apple is doing things that engineers and architects are being blown away by. For example, the glass. These are the largest panes of glass in the world. Apple is doing things that no other company's ever tried to do. No other company has even thought about doing. They're doing it in ways that they've had to invent entire new technologies in order to create Apple's vision of this. And it's going to be a spectacular building. Luckily enough, and good news for those of us who are just fans of Apple, there will be an Apple campus store, or an Apple employee store, as they call it. There will also be an Apple cafe. Now that's interesting too, because in the past, we as peons have not been able to get into the Apple Cafe. There's a beautiful Mac Cafe. Mac Cafe is McDonald's. On the Apple One Infinite Loop location now, but unless you're invited in by an employee, you can't eat there. So it's going to be interesting to see what this cafe is going to be like, because the Apple Campus Cafe is a great restaurant. Amazingly good food. Apple, you may have heard the stories many years ago when Steve Jobs came back. He hired like 2 or 3 of the best chefs, not cafeteria chefs, but chefs in California to come and create the menu. So it's going to be interesting to see what Apple does with this when it comes to allowing average everyday people to come in and partake of the Apple campus. The other thing we're going to talk about is, we've talked about this before on the show, the idea of wireless charging. And there's a rumor that it's going to be available in the next version of the iPhone. There's also a Disney story I posted on The Loop. I'm going to talk about wireless charging. Is it a good thing? Is it something you want? Is it something you need? I don't think so. Not just yet. So maybe it won't be in the next iPhone. We'll talk about that with Jim, among other things. We're also going to talk in our Starting Point Photography segment. Do you have a camera? I went on a meetup group this past Saturday. Had a great time hanging out with folks in downtown Vancouver. And talking to them about their cameras, one of the things that always comes up with photographers is, do I need a new camera? And I have, not a simple way, but I have a interesting way for you to be able to tell whether or not you need a new camera. We'll talk about that later on in the show in our starting point photography segment. One of the, where'd it go? Oh, crap. This is one of those things that is very important, is something that you should all think about. This is something that I'm just filling here because I can't find the goddamn story that I had posted about it. Did you see this story about the Prime Minister of Iceland? The pineapple on pizza debate is tearing us apart. This story cracked me up. Apparently, the Prime Minister of Iceland said something along the lines of that he doesn't think pineapple should be allowed on pizza. Just a funny, weird story. Like, why would he say this? Why is this? Why is this story? MacMan says I can back that ban. I totally agree with him. Why do people care? Put on your pizza whatever the hell you want to put on your pizza. Funnily enough, pineapple on pizza was created by a Canadian, I think in the 50s. And it's a very popular dish. We call it the Hawaiian pizza. In every pizza store, pizza place in Canada, you can go in and order a Hawaiian pizza. I hate pineapple. I've always hated pineapple, but I don't mind pineapple on pizza. A pineapple ham pizza with mushrooms, not bad. It's not my favorite, not my personal favorite, but I don't mind it. But the idea that people would, it's funny how we get involved in this kind of stuff, and it becomes important enough that the stories are written about it. Iceland's president clarifies he likes pineapple, just not on pizza. And I can't believe that the prime minister of the president of Iceland had to clarify his position. Frickin' cares. It's a complete non-story, but we get so caught up in these things that they're just utterly hilarious. He said, the president of Iceland said he was fundamentally opposed to pineapple as a pizza topping. He went as far as to say that he would ban it if he were allowed. Eventually, he was forced to clarify his position, saying he liked pineapple, just not on pizza. He said in a Facebook statement, "I do not have the power to make laws which forbid people to put pineapples on their pizza. I'm glad I don't hold such a power. I would not want to hold a position if I could pass laws forbidding that which I don't like. I would not want to live in such a country." What do you like in your pizza? For me, now that I've become a little bit of a cook, I can make my own pizza dough, and it turns out pretty good. So now I can make the exact pizza I want. I make my own sauce, and so I make the dough, and then put a little bit of sauce on. Not a lot of sauce, a little bit of sauce. And then for me, it's pepperoni, mushrooms, and a buttload of cheese. Like unhealthy amounts of cheese. That's my favorite pizza. Pepperoni and mushroom pizza. I'm not a veggie pizza guy. I don't mind olives on my pizza. Olives aren't awful. What do you guys like on your pizza? I've never had an anchovy pizza. I think anchovies are disgusting. One of the few seafoods I would never eat. Spinach is the best. I've never had spinach on pizza. I should try that. The best pizza I ever had, flavor-wise, was unsurprisingly in Italy, but surprisingly had no meat on it. I'm not a vegetarian. I don't like vegetarian foods in general, and the thought of a vegetarian pizza, the way we get them in North America, bleh. But when Lisa and I were in Rome, and we had just flown in, we had just gotten to the hotel, we were exhausted, and we got to the hotel, and then we decided we were going to go and get something to eat. And so we just walked around the corner, and there was this little tiny pizza parlor. And there was two guys sitting there. Oh, that's right. They were serving Tuborg. So I said, it's my favorite beer. So let's go in here and we'll order Tuborg. And it was like 9 o'clock at night, so they were just closing up. And they didn't speak very good English, and we spoke no Italian. But we eventually figured out that the only thing they had left was pizza and tiramisu. 2 of those, please. And they came out with, I think it's called a margarita pizza. No, not margarita. Marguerite pizza. And it's the national pizza of Italy. And it's, I'm strong. I have had spinach. Sherry? It's spinach, buffalo mozzarella cheese, and tomatoes. That's it. Sauce and mozzarella, buffalo mozzarella, spinach, and tomatoes. And I thought, okay, well, I'm hungry. I'll eat it. There we go. Wayne just posted in the Slack room, the margarita pizza. Tomatoes, mozzarella cheese, olive, garlic, fresh basil, pepper. And I thought, this is going to be boring, but I'll eat it. Took the first bite of the first slice. I think I saw God. Oh, my God. It was so good. The pizza sauce was perfect. The dough was amazing. Not too doughy, not too crisp. It was perfect. The buffalo mozzarella, I never had buffalo mozzarella before, and it was just creamy and delicious. Fresh spinach, fresh tomatoes. It was the first time in my life I'd ever had a fresh farm tomato. Because you don't realize the tomatoes we buy in supermarkets are bland, boring red mush. When you have a real tomato, there's so much flavor. It was so good. Wayne posts in the Slack room the Neapolitan pizza. Tomatoes, mozzarella cheese. It must be made with San Marzano tomatoes, which grow on Mount Vesuvius, and mozzarella campana. That was the best pizza I'd ever eaten. Unbelievable stuff. I don't like deep dish pizza. I think Jon Stewart said it best, that deep dish pizza was just casserole. I don't mind it, but if someone else was ordering it, but I would never order it myself. I don't know why I got on pizza there. I'm not sure. But anyway, what's your favorite? What's your favorite kind of pizza? I like making pizza now. I make it once a month. I guess it's fun making my own dough and making my own sauce and that kind of stuff. It's a good time. Later on in the show, we're going to talk about how you can recognize whether or not you need a new camera. Most of you probably don't, just FYI. But I'll tell you the what to look for that will help you decide whether or not you need a new camera later on. And then after this break, we're going to talk to our good friend Jim Dalrymple of The Loop at loopinsight.com. All that and much more coming up. This is your Mac Life. Welcome back, folks. Thank you guys very much for joining me here on this Wednesday evening, or in the archive if you so choose. On our phone now, we've got our good friend Jim Dalrymple of The Loop at loopinsight.com. Jim, how you doing?
Doing good. How are you?
I am good. Thanks very much for joining me. Now, apologize to the audience. What happened last week?
Well, this dragon came and stole my iPhone.
Okay.
Or I was at a pub that had very poor reception and no Wi-Fi, so That it happened. I told you what happened. I said, look, I could have made up something
Yep.
and said, something drastic happened. No, I was at a pub
At a
with
pub.
poor reception.
At a pub, not a problem. I can completely accept that explanation. Apple announced today that they are going to have the grand opening of their new campus. They're going to call it Apple Park. It'll be open up in April of this year. And then, as they said, 12,000 employees will move from wherever they are now into the new park over the next 6 months. First of all, does Apple Park strike you as kind of a meh name?
Well, no, not really.
Really? You don't think it sounds boring?
No, Apple Campus? That's boring.
Well, I guess so, but
I don't think that Apple always wanted to be like Apple Campus 2.
yeah.
And that's what everybody was calling it, Apple
Sure.
Campus 2.
Yeah.
So they wanted a name for it that was distinctive. I think that they did that. So,
And it's
at least they didn't call it. At least they didn't call it Steve Jobs Campus.
Steve Jobs' place. Well, I think part of the problem is, for me, they have such a cool address now that they're not going to get when they move into this new place. Apple is located at 1 Infinite Loop, Cupertino, so they're not going to get a cool address. It's going to be, Business Park 712 kind of thing. So I was hoping they'd come up with a little jazzier name for it. But, we'll get used to it and we'll move on fairly quickly from that. The stats of this place, this is one of the most remarkable buildings that anybody has ever seen for any number of reasons. Why do you think it was so important for Apple to do a building with the kind of attention to detail that other companies don't even imagine?
I don't think it was important. I think it's just how Apple thinks.
Yeah.
They think about that when they build an iPhone or a Mac. That's how they think. Steve was the one that came up with this. So, when he sat down, this is what he does. The largest pieces of glass in the world, and it's just crazy when you think about it. The whole Apple Park is 175.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
Well,
Crazy.
But the reason I asked the question is they didn't have to do it that way. They didn't have to use the world's largest panes of glass. There was no need to do that. As I said off the top of the show, Apple has encouraged and forced architects and engineers and contractors to do things that no one's ever done before, in ways that they've had to invent technology. They've had to invent a way to move that glass. You've got a pane of glass that big. No present day crane technology could physically do that without the risk of them breaking. So they've made other people create technologies to do this. And I'm sure they're charging an arm and a leg. But my point is, Apple didn't have to do it that way. They chose to do it that way.
That's the way that Apple does everything.
Yeah.
It's not like Apple makes beige boxes and flip phones and then decided to go all out on a building.
Yeah.
This is how they do and approach every single thing they do. Maybe not services, but
That's right.
the rest of it.
Interestingly enough, Apple has said in their press release that the quote, to honor the memory of the company's legendary co-founder and longtime CEO, a 1,000-seat auditorium sitting on top of a hill will be named the Steve Jobs Theater. It's a wonderful tribute to Jobs. I think one of the places that we know him best is on stage someplace. What I found interesting, though, was that seems kind of small. If this is going to be a place for other Apple events, and it will be, I can almost guarantee that the Apple event in September or early October will be held in this space. 1,000 seats seemed awfully small. You couldn't hold WWDC in this place.
No, but that's not what it's for. These are for special events. And, consider that Town Hall in its current campus is about, 200-300 people?
If that,
at most?
Yep.
So now you're talking 3 times the size of that. I think it's going to be great. When you look at something like, where do they hold the Yerba Buena?
Yeah.
where they hold a lot of their events. Um, you know, that space is probably 1,000.
Yeah.
You know, maybe a bit better, but around 1,000. So Apple basically built themselves a yerba buena, and if that's good enough for all the events that they've been doing,
yeah.
No, and don't forget that Apple's very choosy on who they invite to the events. So it's not like they just put out a blanket press release and say, "Hey, anybody that wants to come,
That's right.
here's what we're doing and when.
Yeah.
Just show up."
Yeah.
I mean, they've got tons of security and everything else out around there. So, all of the, and I think it is a fitting tribute to Steve that it is the theater that they named after him.
Well, I'm glad you said fitting tribute, because I think something important is going to happen, that you are undoubtedly going to get your invite to the grand opening, and as a fitting tribute to Steve and to Apple and to even the readers of The Loop, don't take any pictures, because you're a shitty photographer. Yeah, you will not do that space justice.
I know.
Because, just borrow them someone else. I'll come down and take pictures for you if you'd like. Just the way you take pictures will make people look at this and go, well, that's a shitty building. It looks like a dump.
I know. I'm just going to take pictures of the underneath of my bridge and put those out there. Exactly. So yeah, this is it. It'll look the same. It'll be blurry.
That's right. That's right. Exactly. Too dark and blurry, and it'll be a complete waste of time. There'll be one piece of grass in there that'll focus on. That's right.
Jeez.
Along with that, somebody posted on Twitter today something I thought was really interesting for those folks who follow this kind of thing. Apple stock closed today at $137.11. Their highest.
That's high.
Their highest price they've ever had. The company is now worth almost $750 billion when it comes to market cap. Here's the line: not a fundamentally different company in any meaningful way. 1 year ago, Apple was at $94.69. Since then, they're up 44.4% to $137. That's kind of scary, don't you think?
Well, I think that just proves how right all of the pundits are, and that Tim should quit.
Exactly. That's right.
I mean, clearly those guys know what they're talking about.
Clearly.
And Tim has no idea. That's what that says to me.
But the danger is that, and we talked about this off the top of the show, that Apple hasn't done anything to quote unquote deserve this stock price rise. It's sort of been kind of accidental, and therefore it could fall just as easily and just as far.
Okay, but look at it the other way. Did Apple do anything to warrant the stock price going down by so much?
You could argue they've released products that should have increased the stock price.
Well, that's what I'm saying. But did they do anything to deserve the price going down?
Oh, going down. Yes, I'm sorry. Yes. Okay. Yes, I understand.
Right. So if you look at it the other way, you could make arguments that way too.
Yeah.
I mean, the stock market is fickle.
Yeah.
And Steve always said, and Tim has said, that they don't look at the stock market. They worry about the products.
Yeah.
And they put out the products. And if Apple puts out good products, people are going to buy them. The stock price is going to go up, and shareholders are going to be looked after.
Yeah.
And that is what happened.
Yeah.
It's at a high. Is it going to go down? Absolutely.
Yeah.
Because it always does.
Yeah.
Will it go back up? Absolutely. It always does. I mean, it's like this stuff with Apple hiring and firing people. Apple never makes a big deal out of losing people or gaining people.
Yeah.
They never say. But it's people, us, that make a big deal out of Apple losing people.
Sure.
Not so much gaining, but losing.
Yeah.
And, it happens. It happens all the time. Apple's going to lose people. Apple will lose people that we think that they shouldn't lose. They will gain others. And it's part of what happens.
There was that interesting story last week of Google losing a bunch of folks from their autonomous vehicle division because they paid them too much. They gave them so much money in bonus. They basically went, yeah, we're out of here.
Yeah, I'm going to go down and tell Google I'm an expert in autonomous vehicles, and work for a couple of years and then retire.
Well, the funny thing is, and that got me thinking. I actually posted in our Slack room last week to talk about, if you absolutely loved your job, could they give you enough money to quit it?
Well, see, at that point, it's just not about money.
Yeah.
If you love your job and love what you're doing, in that kind of a situation, then it's got nothing to do with money.
Yeah.
I mean, there are people at Apple that have more than that kind of money, and they're still working.
Yeah.
And that's because they just love what they're doing.
If somebody gave you enough money to live very comfortably on for the rest of your life, would you quit the loop in a heartbeat?
Oh boy, I'd shut down the servers. The minute the bank transfer came. No, I don't know.
I'd leave skid marks. Are you kidding me? I wouldn't be able to get out of here fast enough. I've been doing this for 23 years, and I love doing it. But I'll tell you right now, you give me enough money, I can live on, like I said, very comfortably for the rest of my life. Yeah, I'm done. See ya. Bye.
Right in the middle of a show. Oh,
exactly.
Just came through. See ya.
Right. Just won the lottery. Bye-bye. I wouldn't even turn off the stream. I just get up and leave.
We'd hear you laughing as
the door closed. I wouldn't pack shit. I just get on the motorcycle and go to the lottery store and go, hey, I won. Now I'm going to Italy.
With your luck, a car would hit your motorcycle on the way, though.
Shit. No, that's exactly what my luck would be, too. Yeah, you're right.
I'd walk, or I'd take an armored car there or something.
Macman says, no Waymo from the tropics? No, screw you guys. No, not doing it. Not doing it. Not a chance.
I love what I do, though, and I don't know how quickly I would get bored.
Yeah.
But...
Well, I say that, and I say it only half jokingly, that because I know I wouldn't get bored because I love to travel, and so that's exactly what I would do. I wouldn't take all that money just sort of sit at home. I would be off traveling the world in high style with great camera gear and renting fancy cars and motorcycles and that kind of stuff. I would definitely be frickin' enjoying myself. That's for sure. Yeah, I wouldn't be just sitting around the house just bathing in money. That's... Speaking of nothing, Apple is the 5th most reputable company. Yeah, I thought I had a segue there, and I realized, no, I got nothing. So just keep moving. Nothing. Apple is the 5th most reputable company in the United States. 5th. They dropped down from 2nd. Do you know who number 1 is?
Amazon?
Yeah, Amazon.com. That I thought was kind of interesting. What I thought was even more interesting was Google is number 8 as the most reputable company.
You know what's interesting? You and I, on this show, have talked before about Amazon.
Yeah.
And I have said that Amazon has a great reputation. And I believe that they do. As much as they sometimes, I don't think that they have as much control as what they should. They have a great reputation. And I buy stuff from Amazon all the time.
Yeah.
And nothing has ever happened. It's always been great. So I think consumers as a whole really trust Amazon. Mm-hmm. And, what they did today I thought was kind of funny.
Yes.
They got the score of like 82 or 86.27.
Yeah, 86.27.
Yeah, and they gave everybody in the U.S., I think just in the U.S., $8.62 off.
That's right.
whatever order you made today, because that was their score.
Yeah,
I thought that was great.
Now,
you know what? Like I said in the piece, hey, you celebrate whatever the hell you want. If you're going to save me $10 and I was going to order something, I'm there.
Yep, exactly. It was actually over. If you spent over $50, they gave you $8.63 off, which is it's still fine. I no problem. You're giving me a discount. You're making me buy stuff. I got no problem with that. But it is.
Well, chances are you were going to buy it anyway.
Exactly.
And now you save like 10%.
Yep.
So.
But are you surprised that Google is so high? Google at number 8.
No, because I don't think that most people look at the situations the same way that we do.
Yeah.
Because we look at Google as, they're tracking us and they're doing all this. Most people, what do they think? Search. That's it. They have a Gmail address and they search. Yeah, Google's great. Google works good. Why is it that I get the same ads every website I go to?
Yeah, no kidding. Yeah.
No idea how that works. But they don't think of Google. They just think that Google works great.
Yeah. But there's so many. I think it's because the average consumer just doesn't, like you said, see or hear or read the same kind of things that we do as bits of nerds and technoratics. We know, or at least we think we know, what Google's all about and the tracking and those kinds of things. So we would put it much lower down as a reputable company. I thought it was interesting that they were in the top 10. The other companies were Wegmans, which I believe is an American grocery store, Publix supermarkets, Johnson & Johnson, Apple, UPS, Walt Disney, Google, Tesla, and the 3M company rounded out the top. Seriously? Can you not get a beer quietly?
I did.
You were just making all kinds of noise, slamming shit around.
I wasn't slamming shit. I was taking my case back from Bob, if you don't mind.
There is a rumor that the iPhone 8 will enable wireless charging. This has been available on other devices, other phones over the last 2, 3, 4 years. I saw it at CES probably 5, 6 years ago.
Yeah.
We're not going to talk about the rumor itself. Let's talk about wireless charging itself. Disney has announced they've invented a wireless power source able to charge a mobile phone anywhere in a room. Now, nowadays, when you want to do mobile phone charging, your phone has to have a special case, and you have to put the phone down in a special place and not move it in order for this induction charging to work. My toothbrush has got induction charging. That's how it works.
Wow.
Wow, what?
Yeah, mine is manual, doesn't have any charging.
Mine buzzes, makes all kinds of noises. I've got a Bluetooth-enabled keyboard.
Oh,
I do. I have with an app. I've got a Bluetooth-enabled toothbrush with an app that buzzes when it tells me to change zones.
You're making too much money. That's what the problem is.
Actually, my dentist gave it to me as a discount. So I told him I wanted to just test it out. So he gave me a discount.
Yeah, well, I'll have you know, I just went to my dentist and they pointed out the same one to me. Didn't offer me a discount. I went out with a little pouch of a manual toothbrush and one of those tiny little airplane toothpastes.
Well, did you ask your dentist for a discount on the thing? Tell him you're a technology guy. You want to do a review of it?
They told me to get out.
All right, fine, whatever.
Yeah, I'm gonna check Bob's shopping cart and see if he has one.
Good point. There might be one in there.
No.
So this idea of wireless charging, is that something that's just in general of interest to you? Do you need or want to wirelessly charge your iPhone?
Well, look, I think that everybody would want wireless charging. I think one of the big things is now how safe it is.
Yeah.
You know, are you going to get zapped and, you know, you're gonna go into a room and it's going to charge your iPhone and you come out with a big lump on the side of your head, or, you know?
Well, I don't think there's any danger of you getting zapped from the induction charging that we're using now, where you just put your phone on a desktop or on a mat. The problem with that is that you can't use the phone while you're charging it. It's got to be stationary down on the mat, which I find kind of useless to me. I don't find enough of an advantage of wireless charging over a cable, especially because if I'm at my computer, it's plugged into my USB port on my computer, and if the phone rings or something happens, I can just pick it up and use it. The Disney story is what's really interesting. I think that's going to be the future, but it's also a little bit terrifying. Disney calls it quasi-static cavity resonance for ubiquitous wireless power transfer.
Yeah, that's something that Tesla would make up, or Edison. You know, that's the name that they would make up.
Well, it gets worse. It says, with a properly designed room containing purpose-built structures made of aluminum, along with a copper pipe in the center of the room, circled by capacitors.
Yeah, but don't get too close to the post.
Exactly. You can't get within 18 inches of the post that's in the middle of your room. That's stupid.
You know what we would do? We'd get somebody all hammered up and take them and tape them to the post or something, just to see what happens.
It's just kind of a weird idea. I don't want this. I'm not generally a paranoid person about, we're all being embedded with Wi-Fi all the time and TV signals, radio waves, and that kind of stuff. I'm not worried about that. I don't think that stuff causes brain cancer. I think this shit might cause brain cancer.
Yeah, well, by the time that they realize that all this stuff that's going on today does cause brain cancer, it'll be too late for us.
Oh, so. Exactly. Yeah, I like the idea of this kind of wireless charging where you're just sitting, at your watching TV and your phone's being charged even while it's in your hand. But it feels like the amount of power this stuff has to push out, this electricity, 1900 watts, seems like an awful lot and kind of a scary thing.
Well, you have to, do you get like tingles in your fingers when you walk in that room, Like,
does your hair stand up on end? And
yeah, it can be kind of creepy, but I think it's a technology we all want to see. Wouldn't it be nice if we could just walk into a room and our phone be charged all the time?
Yeah.
That's the kind of stuff that we like. I don't know.
Yeah, this is not yet. This is still just an invention by Disney. This is not actually coming to stores near you soon. And that being the case, so I don't think Apple is going to do anything about this with the iPhone 8. They might, but it doesn't seem like an elegant enough solution for Apple to get involved with. I don't think customers are clamoring for this. It's not something that Android manufacturers are selling on. There are companies that will sell you a case and a mat that you can use on your own. So I don't think this rumor that the next version of the iPhone is going to have wireless charging is true. I think it will eventually, but I don't think it's going to happen this September.
Oh, well, I can't see that the technology is far enough ahead to do something like that. As you said, setting my phone down on a charger, what's the difference to plug it in?
Yeah.
I don't see a difference. Why would I bother?
If it charged up faster on the mat, which it won't, then that maybe that was it. Or if you can't, but you could use it at the same time. Otherwise, maybe an overnight thing that you put it on your bedside table. If Apple extends the battery life of the iPhone so that it does in fact last all day, and mine doesn't, but then again I use it constantly, and then you would charge it on your bedside table, maybe that might kind of work. But yeah, there's not enough elegance in this idea, I think, for Apple to get involved.
Yeah. Now, is Apple working on something? Yeah, you can.
Oh, hell yes. Hell yes. Yeah, I guarantee you they are. Another story that we didn't get a chance to talk about last week that came out a couple of weeks ago, it looks like Planet of the Apps is now a very real thing. The Apple's going to release sometime this spring on the App Store. It is different from what I was assuming from the descriptions that we had heard beforehand, what it was going to be. Now it feels like it's going to be kind of like a combination of The Voice and Shark Tank, and there's going to be a competition. I thought it was going to be more of a documentary. They were going to pick 2 or 3 developers and follow them along the process. With that change, you've seen the trailers. Granted, we've only seen the trailers, but does the show look interesting to you just from the trailers? No, tell me what you really think.
Look, I don't watch The Voice. I don't watch any of those reality shows.
Yep.
And while I probably will give this a chance just because of where it came from, it's just not my thing. Yep. I don't watch Shark Tank. I could care less about your idea for a product and whether Mark Cuban is going to support it or not. I don't care. I don't care if you can survive on an island with a bunch of other millennials that want to survive on the island. I don't care.
That's right.
I literally do not give a shit.
This is not a knock on on the lovely and talented IRC babe Sly, but she is addicted to Big Brother. I have never watched a second of reality TV. I've watched enough reality TV as long as it takes me to reach for the remote and change channels. That's how long I watch reality TV. I don't care about any of it. I don't care any of it. I have my own reality. I don't want to watch yours.
Yeah.
Therefore,
it doesn't make me feel any better to see somebody tell you you can't sing or you can sing or what. I don't care. I'm not going to buy your album because your music sucks. So I don't care.
Well, that being the case, then, hypothetical, would you watch a Voice heavy metal?
I don't care.
Okay, fair enough.
I really don't care about any reality TV.
I'm not saying this is going to be a bad show. I don't think it's going to be a good show, but I'm not saying you shouldn't watch it. A lot of people have passed judgment on this. I'm just saying it's not interesting to me. I think what would have been interesting is if somebody from Apple was involved. I don't care what Gwyneth Paltrow thinks about anything. I don't care what Jessica Alba thinks about anything. Will.i.am, don't care. Now, you put Tim Cook in one of those seats, now I care. That's a show I'd watch. Johnny Ive, that's a show I'd watch.
Yeah.
Put those guys in one of those four chairs, and now you've got a show that's at least of interest to me, because I would be very interested to hear how Johnny Ive would walk someone through this process and how Tim Cook would walk them through. But Gwyneth Paltrow, Gwyneth Paltrow wants you to put jade rocks in your vagina. I don't care what she thinks about anything.
Yeah.
So yeah, and now the other aspect of this is I've seen a lot of comments from developers, both privately and publicly, and some of them aren't happy about this. They think these apps are going to take over the App Store. Apple's going to be pimping these apps left, right, and center. Exactly. They're definitely going to do this. That's just the nature of the business.
So what happens when Apple pays $1 gazillion to have Drake?
Yeah, that's right.
It's all over the place. That's what they do.
Yeah.
That's, and that's why I say Apple needs to stop pandering to celebrities and start getting serious about music. Again, they were serious at one point, but now they just pander. So the same thing is going to happen. Developers that spend their lives making these apps are going to get just all of a sudden, boom.
Yeah.
You suck. And these apps that are on the store are going to make a fortune.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter what the app is. They're going to make a fortune. So,
I don't think this is a whole lot different from any other process. I mean, the developers have to go through a similar process anyway to get people's attention. This one just happens to be televised, and these guys, I guarantee none of these developers will ever get famous. They're not going to be going on a worldwide developer tour where they'll code.
They may be called up on stage at a developer conference. You never. And here's the winner of Planet of the Apps.
Sure.
I mean, you never. But the thing is, how fair is that to the developers that are out there working every day and have been?
Yeah.
So these apps are going to be featured. They're going to get fuck you money.
Yeah. Oh, well, I think what was the prize money was a $10 million development deal.
Okay, how much would you need
to develop an app? A lot more than that, because I don't know shit about developing apps.
Well, I'd take it and just run. I'd put that show into business in one season.
It's going to be interesting to see how it plays out. I'll watch the first couple episodes, but I can almost promise, because I just generally don't like that type of show. It's not anything against the developers or the judges don't interest me. The concept of the show doesn't interest me. It's just not anything. I don't think it's going to be a big deal. That being said, Apple has said and is moving on towards original content, carpool karaoke, which I think will be huge. Do you think Apple should be moving into more traditional original content? Should they have their own TV series, the traditional, cop drama, or moving into movies? There's an argument to be made that Apple needs its own content for the Apple TV, very much like Netflix has, and very much like Amazon and Hulu and those kind of companies are creating their own content that they control. Should Apple be doing more of that in a traditional sense?
I don't know that Apple could do that the way that Netflix and Amazon did, because you see what the shows that Apple comes up with.
Yeah.
You know, Carpool Karaoke is funny, but it's not a show. It's content, but it's not a show.
Yeah.
Planet of the Apps is a reality show about apps. Okay, it's good. A lot of people like reality shows, I guess. Go for it. But the stuff that Netflix and Amazon are doing, I mean, those are award-winning shows.
Sure, absolutely. Yeah.
You know, these are great programs. I've watched some of these programs, and they are good.
Yep.
So I don't think that Apple could do something like that.
Really?
I really don't.
But it's not like Netflix and Hulu and Amazon have any special powers. All they do is find good people and give them shitloads of money. Apple could do that.
Yeah, but Apple won't do that. Apple would want to be involved and stick their little fingers in, and, you know, what would be an award-winning series will become Planet of the Apps.
Possibly. They could do what other companies do. They could just simply go to a show like Sundance and buy that movie or buy that TV show. It's already done.
I think that what they could have done, and this has been said many times, I realize, they could have bought Netflix.
Yes.
And although that time has passed, they could have bought Netflix and let Netflix do its thing.
Yeah.
You know, integrate it, do all the stuff, but let Netflix make its series. The original series by anybody but the four major cable companies are great. HBO makes some great series. FX makes some great series. And I know that they're all owned by the big four in one way or another. But there's some autonomy there where they go out and make these great series.
Yeah.
And Netflix, Amazon, I mean, there's some great programming out there that is not what you would expect.
Yeah. It brings me up to the next point. Walt Mossberg said on CNBC today that networks have outlived their usefulness. Viewers want easy ways to find shows, not networks. When I thought about that, I realized he's right. One of my favorite shows is Big Bang Theory. I have no idea what network that's on.
Right.
You know, I got a choice of four, and I would guess it would be CBS or ABC, but I honestly don't know. Most of us probably can't pick our favorite shows and what network they're on. Well, you might know they're on Thursdays at 8:30 on channel 2012 on your remote control, but you probably don't know what the actual network is. And that may be a bad thing or a good thing, because networks, at least in theory, are ways for these shows to get promotion and marketing. And also to be created. Because you forget that if networks weren't around, Big Bang Theory would have to create all 20 of its episodes and then try to sell itself to somebody else. I think we would get less TV that way. With the free networks footing the bill, or at least taking the risk, I think we're getting good TV shows, and encourages others to make good TV shows. Now, that being said, there's nothing on regular network TV as good as Game of Thrones, as good as Veep, as good as, so many other things that we've seen on cable or on HBO or those kind of things. So there's a delicate balancing act there. I think we still need networks. They're less important to the consumer. I still think they're very important to the industry itself.
Well, networks are, if you look at what apps are available and what networks will give you, is very little. Networks won't give you much.
Yeah.
Unless you pay extra. You're already paying for it, but they want you to pay more.
Sure.
And, that kind of pisses me off. I don't like them. I don't like them at all.
The other advantage networks have is that they are an advertising vehicle. It's been said many times that our TV shows are just there so that the networks can show us ads. The TV shows are secondary. The TV, if they could do a test pattern and sell ads on it, they would. So there's that aspect of it too.
A lot of shows you'd argue that's exactly what they do.
Exactly. It was just announced earlier this afternoon, Fitbit paid $23 million for Pebble. That's pocket change Is Pebble
Yep.
dead?
Oh yeah. I mean, Fitbit itself is in trouble.
Yeah, yeah.
So when you look at Fitbit and then say, what is it going to do with Pebble?
Yeah.
Nah, no.
It was a surprise to me because I didn't see the point. I don't see why Fitbit paid anything for Pebble. I think that $23 million is getting some IP. It's probably paying for some smart engineers more so than the idea that they are getting cool new technology or a new device or things along those lines. I think
Right.
it's they're just paying for some smart people and maybe some intellectual property. I don't think there's anything else there for Fitbit, especially at that price, $23 million in this market in this day and age. That's literally nothing.
No, no, I don't think that there's anything there. I really don't. I don't see a future.
Yeah, exactly. Not for a very vague future for Fitbit, and certainly no future at all for Pebble. I think in a year's time we'll hear that they've shut down and are no longer doing anything.
Well, they could take that tech
Yep.
and put it in there, you know,
Yep.
put it into a Fitbit, or I don't think that they're going to do a Pebble.
No, not at all. There's the brand name isn't good enough for them. Fitbit's much bigger of a brand name than Pebble is.
Yeah, I can't see it.
Apple announced late last week, but last week, WWDC 2017, June 5th to 9th, is moving to San Jose, California. As a guy who lives under a bridge in San Jose, what do you think of the idea of Apple moving it back to San Jose?
I think it's great.
Why?
I really do. Well, one, I don't like San Francisco.
Just in general?
Just in general.
Yeah.
I think San Francisco is a dirty place.
Yep.
You know, and it is, and you know, people can yell at me if they want, but it's a fact. You walk out of a hotel and there's the chances of having a homeless guy pee on you are pretty great in San Francisco.
Yeah, I agree.
San Jose is not the same town that a lot of people may remember.
Yeah.
San Jose it's different. It's different now. It's grown up, matured. The downtown core is very close together.
Yeah.
It's clean, and I think that people are really going to like it.
One of the problems though is a lot of folks have said that this is great because the hotels are so much cheaper in San Jose. Yeah, they are now, but I guarantee you in 3 years, because of WWDC, those hotels will jack their prices up to San Francisco rates, and you'll still be paying $300 a night when you go to WWDC. It's going to get priced out of the market just the same as San Francisco did.
But I think the big difference with San Jose, I mean, I talked to a lot of developers that were actually staying with friends or whatever down here, down in the peninsula, and taking the train every day up to San Francisco for WDC, because San Francisco, no matter what, they gouged us to death.
Yeah.
Restaurants, bars, everything.
Yeah.
And something against that too. And will San Jose do it? I hope not, but they may.
Yeah, I think it's a given. I think it's the nature of capitalism. You charge what the market will bear. Right now, because we saw the same with Macworld Expo. Macworld Expo's hotel prices eventually got out of reach for the vast majority of us because you could see it. You would go to the Intercontinental Intercontinental website or the Marriott's website, and 2 weeks before Macworld Expo, you could pay $150, $200 a night for the hotel. During Macworld Expo, it was $400 a night.
Yeah.
So the hotels in San Jose are going to gouge people just as much as the hotels in San Francisco. They're not holier now or better than San Francisco. It's going to get just as bad very quickly.
Well, but there are a lot of places that you can stay around San Francisco or around San Jose, Cupertino, Sunnyvale, Mountain View, that are not the Tenderloin.
Yes, that's right.
You know, you can stay at a decent hotel that's within a 15-minute Uber ride.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
Of San Jose Convention Center, and it's not going to be as much.
Now, all that being said, we got to talk about the Beard Bash. Are you going to have the Beard Bash in San Jose?
I'm actually going to look at a venue Friday.
Fantastic. Good.
So,
I'm glad to hear it.
Yes, I'm going to have a Beard Bash. I hope that it's going to be even bigger than last year's.
Now,
last year's was huge.
The big question, because of last year's Beard Bash, is will it be called the Beard Bash?
Yes, it will.
Thank God. Thank God. Folks, you may not remember, but Jim got new stupid amounts of caca from uptight, just pains in the ass, because he called it the Beard Bash, and these idiots thought it meant only men were invited. Good.
The idiot worked for Twitter, which, as I explained before, is why I can't get verified now, because I went after him on Twitter. And
you don't need to get verified. Yeah. Don't just. Hey, Mo.
No, I know.
Mo,
I'm just saying.
I'm telling Mo, create a icon for Jim with a little blue check mark. Send it to Jim, and then there you'll look like you're fucking verified.
Yeah.
God. But yeah, I'm glad that you're gonna stand your ground and still call it the Beard Bash and let the idiots be idiots and you can ignore them.
Yeah. And if there's anybody that is confused about why it's called the Beard Bash, then they can call me and I'll explain.
Yeah, or they just haven't been paying attention at all.
I have a beard. Click.
Exactly. That's right. I've had it for 20 years. Click.
Yeah.
Get away from me. Folks, been talking to Jim Dalrymple of The Loop at loopinsight.com. He's here each and every week. It's a condition of his parole. Thanks, Jim.
Thanks, Shawn.
Talk to you next week. See ya.
Bye.
Bye-bye. I saw this very funny piece on Mashable that and I tweeted about it. I said that the person on Mashable who wrote this, and I didn't look at who it was before, the story was the iPhone 8 may have more storage than you'll ever need. And I literally laughed out loud reading that. Us old-timers know why I laughed out loud reading that. The rumor is that there won't be any 32 gigabyte iPhone 8, the next version of the iPhone, whatever number it's going to be called. Apple will go to 64 gigabytes. And this person, obviously a young person, said, that's more storage than I'll ever need. Well, guess what, kids? Take it from us old-timers. Whoever wrote this is young. Old-timers know data expands to fill storage. It doesn't matter how much storage you have, your data will increase to fill that storage. If you have a 500 gigabyte hard drive and you put in a terabyte hard drive thinking, yes, I'll never fill this up, you'll start collecting stuff, even by accident, to fill up that terabyte drive. I know this from personal experience. This is one of my backup drives. This is my 2 terabyte photo backup drive. And I thought, 2 terabytes, I'm never going to fill this thing up. Well, guess what? It's full. Because I don't throw anything away anymore. I used to back in the days when I only had like a 100 megabyte hard drive. I would only keep that stuff I desperately needed to keep. I would throw away everything else. Well, nowadays, with the file sizes of photos being 20 and 30 megabytes, and me taking several hundred photos over a weekend, if I don't cull them and delete them, I just put them on the hard drive. And it fills the hard drive up. Music. If you've got a small storage iPhone, you'll create music files that are small. But if you've got lots of room on it, you'll create music files that are bigger. you'll save more things, you'll download more things. Your storage, 64 gigabytes, will eventually. And the other thing is, look at things like live photo. If you use the iPhone 7's live photo feature, those files are, I think, about 3 times bigger than regular files. So it'll fill up your iPhone 3 times faster. Monty says data abhors a vacuum. That's right, exactly. It's a good way to look at it. So yeah, the more storage than you ever need is not true at all. Not even a little bit. In the starting point photography segment, I went off this past weekend, had a great time. Went downtown to a fun little pub here in Vancouver, a little Irish pub, actually run by Irishmen and women, called Mahoney's, one of my favorite pubs. Beautiful. If you're ever in Vancouver, I would encourage you to go downtown. You will go downtown because it's beautiful down there. And there's a nice little Irish pub called Mahoney's down there. And the people at Mahoney's are wonderful. They've always been very kind to me. They always allowed me to do my classes down there with them, and always let me, they don't charge me. I bring 15, 20 people, and we have beers and lunch and that kind of stuff. And it was fun going down there, and this was the first meetup of a new group of photographers. And one of the things that we chatted about was I always ask folks, what kind of cameras do you shoot with? What's your most used camera? And it's usually a mix. About 25% of them are using iPhones or Android phones. Very few Android phones, mostly iPhones. And the rest of them are using DSLRs with maybe 1 or 2 fancier point-and-shoot cameras in the mix. And 2 or 3 of the people asked me, should they get a new camera? Now, one person had a Nikon D3300, which is fairly new, I think, inside the last 2 years. One of the ladies had my original camera, the Nikon D50, which is a 10-year-old camera. And this is very common among beginning photographers, thinking that, well, if I just buy a new camera, my pictures will get better. That's kind of true. The image quality, because the sensor, if you've got an old camera, the sensors on newer cameras are better, so the image quality will get a little bit better. But in general, that's not true. Unless you know how to create good images, the camera's not going to matter. That's why you see things like the Apple just posted a group of one night in videos. So I can't find this and show this to you guys. Hang on a second. Let me just stop this. Apple just posted up a bunch of new one night in videos. We talked about these a couple weeks ago. These videos that they use to show off the low light technology of the iPhone 7S. And all of these shots, even though they're shot on an iPhone 7S, are good images. Now, whether the photographer themselves was a professional photographer or not is not the point. They were all good photographers. They all knew how to create good images. They all knew how to see light. They all knew how to operate their camera. And that's more important than the camera you have. Knowing how it works, knowing what makes a good image, knowing how to see light and manipulate light and use light, that stuff is more important than the camera. But what I tell folks is you can tell when you need a new camera in a very simple way. It's the exact way I found out that I needed a new camera. I had my beloved Nikon D50, and I still have that camera. It's still in my camera bag as a backup camera. It's old. It not very fast. It takes decent enough images, but it's an old camera. But I knew that I needed a new camera when I got to this point in my photographic life. When I knew what every single button on my camera did, I knew how every single one of those buttons would affect my photography. I knew and understood what ISO was, and how it affected my images. I knew what shutter speed was. I knew what aperture was. I understood my camera. I understood what all of these buttons on the camera did. There wasn't a single button on that Nikon D50 that I didn't know how it worked. I may not use them all, but I knew what every one of them was for and how to use them if I wanted to get a particular shot. So that was the first key. I also, I hope, became a good photographer with that Nikon D50. I saw light, I saw composition, I saw images, and I was able to create them with the camera. The problem came when I started to be able to visualize images, know how to create those images, but the camera couldn't do it. Whether it was trying to shoot low light and the camera's ISO just wasn't good enough, whether it was trying to shoot at relatively high shutter speeds and the camera maxed out at a speed that was lower than what my mind's eye needed in order to make that image. When I found that the camera just wasn't, I was more capable than the camera. I was a better photographer than the camera was a camera. That's how you know when you need to replace your camera. When you are visualizing images, you know how to create those images, and you can't create them on your camera. Then you need a new camera. For me, it was low light. Low light was the biggest thing for me. I had rented a Nikon D4S for a Macworld Expo. Loved that camera. And it had a usable ISO of 12,800. And it was at Macworld Expo. And I was taking amazing shots at parties and in bars and in the city streets of San Francisco. Just really shots that I just thought were spectacularly good with very, very little noise at ISO 12,800. So I come back, I start shooting at high ISOs with my Nikon D50, and the pictures were shit. They were just awful. The camera's ISO was nowhere near high enough to give me those usable shots in those lighting conditions. So I could visualize the shot in my head. I knew what I needed to do with the camera from a technical point of view. So the creative aspect of it was in my head. I knew what shot I wanted. The technical aspect was in my head. I knew what I needed to do to create those images. But the equipment failed me. The equipment wasn't good enough to be able to capture those images. That's when I knew I needed a new camera. So the lady that had the Nikon D50 in, actually it was, I will show her to you. Oops. Was this lady. She had a Nikon D50. And that's what I asked her. I said, do you know everything about that camera? She said, no, I just read the manual a couple of days ago. I said, do you know what all the buttons on that camera do? She said, no. I said, do you understand ISO, aperture, and shutter speed and the exposure triangle? She said, no. I said, then you don't need a new camera. That Nikon D50 is going to be fine for you until you know that stuff, until you comprehend that stuff, until you know how that stuff affects your images. There's no point in you buying a new camera. Another lady was talking about buying a very expensive lens to put on her older camera. I said, yeah, you really shouldn't do that until you know how to use that camera to its limit. Don't buy a big expensive lens unless you're getting a good deal on it. But she thought she needed a new lens. So it's interesting that it's one of the things that you think about when you think, do I need a new camera? Are you maxing out the camera you have now? Are you unable to get images that you can visualize in your head that you know you can create, but you can't with that camera? The iPhone's a perfect example because it doesn't do great low light stuff. I know when I'm shooting low light, I know my iPhone can't capture those images. So I'll bring around my D600 because I know it can capture those low light images. In those situations, I'm a better photographer than my iPhone is a camera. But when I bring out the D600 is a better camera than I am a photographer. So that's kind of how you can tell whether or not you should be springing for a new camera. If you have any questions about this or anything else photographic-wise, as always, send me emails to Shawn at yourmaclifeshow.com or onair@yourmaclifeshow.com. Wayne says in the Slack room, another benefit of waiting until that point, Shawn, is you'll also know exactly what you want from your next camera. It's a good point, Wayne, because the other thing that happens is you'll know what kind of photographer you are. You'll know what kind of photography you like to shoot. And you can buy the camera that's focused on that kind of photography. So one of the things I told one of the ladies was that she said she loved traveling. I said, well, buying a brand new DSLR may not be the camera for you. She was petite, a little tiny woman. I said, you might want to look at mirrorless cameras because they're smaller and lighter and they still give good image quality. So maybe look at a mirrorless camera after you learn how to use the camera you have. That's a good point, Wayne. Monty says in the IRC chat room, I saw an image over the weekend that was shot at ISO 32,000 and a shutter speed of 1/8,000th of a second, and it was not a crap image. You ain't getting those results from an iPhone. You ain't getting those results from a Nikon D50 or a Canon Rebel. That was a professional camera. I can just tell from the stats that Monty is saying. And there was a reason why the photographer did that. The photographer also knew his camera could do it and knew how to do that stuff in his camera. So yeah, learn. Remember, I always say learn, focus, practice. So learn about your camera, focus on shooting, and then practice before you go out and buy any new camera. I got a question from Kevin. Should I buy a 50mm f1.8 or a 55-200 VR lens? That's an impossible question to answer, Kevin. One of the problems is those are two completely different cameras. 50mm f1.8 is a small, physically small prime lens. That's good in very particular situations. The 55-200 VR lens has got a good range from fairly up close to fairly distant. It also depends on what kind of photography you like. If you're a portrait photographer, maybe the 55-200 will work for you. If you're an up-close photographer, maybe the 50mm would work. If you're someone who likes to shoot wildlife, well, the 200 would help. The other thing is that 55-200 is not going to be a great lens if it's the lens I'm thinking of. That 55-200, typically those kinds of relatively inexpensive lenses aren't good at either range. So they're not great at 55mm, not great at 200mm. There's a sweet spot in the middle for most lenses. Most lenses that have that kind of range just really aren't good at either end of the range for any number of reasons. So figure out what kind of photographer you are or want to be before you buy one of these lenses. And that might help you focus more on which lens to buy. Maria in San Francisco says, how can I take photos of fireworks with a Nikon D3200? Maria, first thing you do, as always, read the manual. Fireworks require your shutter be open for a very long time to grab all that light from the fireworks. We see fireworks as very bright lights. Your camera doesn't. It needs to be open for a very, very long time to get all this light in. So read your manual and find out what your maximum and minimum shutter speeds are on your camera. I guarantee your Nikon D3200 has got the shutter speeds that will do this. I just want you to read the manual so you'll know what they are. You need a tripod. It's almost impossible to hold a camera steady for the length of time that you need to catch fireworks. The shutter has to be open for between 2 and 10 seconds, depending on what you're shooting and how you're shooting it. And you can't hold a camera steady for 2 seconds. Your photos will be blurry. So you need a tripod. The other thing you'll need after you get your tripod is some sort of remote shutter release. Either what's called a cable release, and it's a cable that plugs into your camera, and it's a little plunger on it, and you push the plunger and the camera takes the picture. Or you can use a electronic remote. I like the electronic ones that do the same thing with a wireless. There's no wire there, so it's a wireless connection. You push the button. Find out if your D3200 has what's called mirror lockup. Your D3200 has got a mirror in it that when you push the shutter button, the mirror moves out of the way. The problem with that is that when the mirror moves out of the way, it shakes the camera a little bit. So you want to see if you can lock the mirror up out of the way before you take the picture. I know my D600 does it, and professional cameras do it. I don't know if the 3200 does it. You're going to want a lens, and your kit lens is probably 1855. It's probably good enough to shoot at, say, 35. One of the things you want to do is get to the fireworks place ahead of time. You want to scout it out. You want to, first of all, find the best location. But you also want to set your gear up because it's hard to do it in the dark. You want to get there during the daylight, set your gear up, do a couple of test shots so you'll know that everything is right and focused properly and that kind of stuff, and then you don't touch your gear. The other thing you want to do is turn off vibration reduction on your lens and or on your camera body. Once you're on a tripod, you don't need vibration reduction on anymore. Set your aperture to f8 or f11. Those are the fire and forget ones, because those would be the easiest ones to manage. Monty says, fireworks photography, step 1, find a place away from all the other people who have point and shoot cameras, who can't turn their flash off. And step 2, drink and enjoy the fireworks, take pictures afterwards. For me, I would disagree with Monty on this. So I understand what he's saying, but for me, once I get all my gear set up, I've got my clicker in my hand. I can chat with people. I can talk. I can, whoever I'm at the fireworks with, I can enjoy, because what you do is because you go in the daytime and you see where the fireworks are being shot off at. And rather than staring up into the sky, waiting for fireworks, watch the platform where the fireworks are being shot off. And because they're mortars, you'll see a little burst, a little what's it called when shot, a burst of flame, something. But you'll see it shoot off. And with practice, you'll know they're probably 2 seconds. So you'll go 1001, 1002, and you'll push your shutter button. Your shutter will open, the fireworks will bloom, blossom, and then your shutter will close. You take a look, see if you need to adjust anything. And for me, because I know my camera and I know where these buttons are, within about 3 or 4 fireworks, I'm locked in. My camera is in the right spot. I've got the right exposure, and now I can just watch the fireworks and hit the button when I need it, and the camera is doing things fairly automatically, all by itself. There's all kinds of websites for this kind of stuff, too. If you want some more details, you can go to them or send me another email, and I will point you to more information if you need it. Why isn't this is David Ron. David Ron. Sorry, it's an odd name. David Ron says, why isn't the flash in my Nikon D40 working? How can I fix it? I don't know. First of all, I'm not a camera tech. And secondly, it's a D40? So it's probably 12 years old? It broke, dude. And you can't fix it. And you kind of shouldn't be using it anyway. Because flash is crap light. I wouldn't bother with trying to fix the flash in that. Learn how to shoot without the flash. It may be, depending on what kind of photographer you are, you might want to think about getting a newer camera. Because one of the other things about newer cameras is that a camera that old, its technology is old too. 5 years is a lifetime in cameras. If you bought a camera within the last 2 years, you got a good camera, it's going to last you another 5 years. If your camera is 5 years old, you're on the cusp of technology. If your camera is 10 years old, you've got ancient technology. And what I mean by that is that the sensor on your camera is really, really old. Sensor hardware and software have just gone magnitudes, exponentially better over the last 5 years. They're going to have better quality images in general. They're going to have better, higher ISO. They're going to just be a better sensor, and that gives you better images. Like I said, anything in the last 2 years, especially for a consumer-grade camera, don't worry about it. You're going to be fine. 2 to 5 years, yeah, probably still taking good pictures. If it's 10 years old or a D40 or D50 and it's 10, 12 years old, check. You know what you do? Go to pawn shops. Pawn shops always have got, or secondhand stores, they've always got a 2, 3, 4-year-old Canon Rebel or a Nikon D something that you can get for a couple $100. Mosquito says sensors get better, but do they wear out, Shawn? They don't wear out any more than your computer chips wear out. If you abuse the camera, you can break them, but they don't wear out from the point of view of mechanical devices that break, because they're not. It's a silicon, so it's not. Macman said sensors, no. Shutters, yes. Shutters do. Shutters have a life on them because that's a physical object, and there's a rated life of every shutter on every camera that physically it can only do this so many times. So you can also go to a website like dpreview.com to find out what the rated life of your shutter speed is. And there are websites where you can upload a picture and it will tell you how many shutter activations you've had in your camera. Most people are nowhere near even half their maximum activations. I wouldn't worry about it too much. If you're curious, go ahead and do it. But vast majority of people, only the pros are pushing that shutter so many times that they worry about shutter activations. Macman says that's in the EXIF info. He is correct. Our friend Don Beck on the photogenic island of Martha's Vineyard says, although I know that you mentioned DP Review before, after hearing you mention it again on last week's show, I finally checked it out and promptly bookmarked it. dpreview.com. Among other things, I checked out what they had to say about the Nikon point and shoot I'd bought last year, the Coolpix 6900. I was surprised to see that it still cost about $300. I bought mine as a refurbished unit for $79. I'm still happy with it, especially with the telephoto capabilities I was looking for. An equivalent range of 25 to 300 millimeters, and of course the price. I do wish it had a shutter and or aperture priority mode, but you can't have everything for that size. That said, I still use my iPhone 6 for most of my pictures. By the way, Don mentioned something to me. He had a really neat, I'm trying to find it now. He had we were talking about tripods a while back, and it's there. It's called the Foothold. Hearing you talk about tripods last week, I couldn't resist mentioning my flexible monopod Foothold. I gotta admit that although I'm pleased with the way it adds stability and the fact that it's very, very portable, I hardly ever use mine. The built-in stabilization in some of today's cameras is a far easier solution. Don's got this really clever little idea. It's basically a piece of string. It's a piece of string. But it's a piece of string that attaches to the bottom of your camera. I'm going to show this to you guys. I mean, just get out of, why isn't this? I hate when Safari does this. Stop it. It's a piece of string that attaches to the tripod port of your camera. And what you do is put one piece of the string in the, one piece of the foothold into the bottom of your camera, and then the other piece you stand on. You wrap it around your foot. And what that does is it kind of gives you a monopod, which is a very clever idea. I've seen it in other places, but Don's is also a very clever idea. Like all monopods, it will stabilize your camera in the vertical axis. Okay, so your camera, when you're holding it, won't go up or down. It doesn't stabilize it in the two horizontal axes. So that's a problem with all monopods. Not just Don's Foothold, but every other kind of monopod. But it's quick, it's easy, I think it's cheap. If you want more information, you can send an email. You can go to donbeck at donbeck.org is one of his websites, donbeck.org. Email to donbeck@donbeck.org. It's a clever idea, Don. Thanks very much for letting me know about it. Hector Machado. I have a 27-inch iMac running Sierra 10.12.3. I recently noticed that with the cursor, when the cursors move back and forth rapidly, it changes sizes and then reverts to its correct size. Has anyone encountered this? Is it a bug or what? Does it need to be reported to Apple? I saw this and thought it was very funny, not in a teasing kind of way that Hector's dumb or anything like that, but that it's one of the things that reminds me that not everyone is like me or us. They don't pore over the details of these things. They don't read Apple's website on the latest and greatest piece of software to figure out what it's going to do. Hector just installed the software. He didn't read anything about it. And what that is just an accessibility thing that lets you, like when you, on a big monitor, especially me, I've got 2 monitors, I'll often lose my cursor. I was like, what the hell is my cursor at? And a quick wiggle makes the cursor bigger. If it's on that screen over here or that screen over here, I can find it. It's just an accessibility thing. I think you can turn it off. I haven't. I like it. But it reminded me that not everybody is obsessively involved in this kind of stuff. And that's a good reminder that we should have on a regular basis. And so, Hector, it's not a bad thing. There's no downside to it. So don't worry about it. If it's annoying, look to the accessibility preferences in your system preferences, and you can probably turn it off. Mosquito says the cursor wiggle thing is very helpful, especially on a 2-monitor rig. Yeah, exactly. I'm the same one. Monty says, I had a chance to hold a Nikon D8100A over the weekend. The sound of the shutter on that camera makes my heart skip beats. Mosquito says, the tripod mount is simply a 1/4-inch screw or similar, correct? I don't think it's a 1/4 inch. I think it's a 3/8 inch. And I think it's the common among the industry that the bottom of all cameras that have tripod mounts are, I want to say 3/8 of an inch. Someone correct me if I'm wrong, but it is consistent throughout cameras. What else was I going to say camera-wise? I think it was it. Yeah, I think I'm done. As always, I want to say thanks very much to our good friend Jim Dalrymple of The Loop at loopinsight.com for joining me. I appreciate that. And to you guys, as always, for being tuned in the show, all the cool kids in the IRC chat room or in the Slack chat room, thank you guys very much for asking questions and being involved in the show that way. Or if you're tuning into the archive, I always appreciate you guys being tuned into the show, no matter how you manage to do it. As always, want to remind you, this is my job. Vito regularly reminds me to say this. This is my job. If you want to support Your Mac Life, please send me, subscribe to the show. You can go to the website at yourmaclifeshow.com. Right there on the left-hand side, you can subscribe for $2, $5, $10, $15 a month, whatever you so choose. Comes out of your credit card each month, comes into my PayPal account. You don't need to sign up for PayPal to do it. You can do it through your credit card without ever even having a PayPal account. I'd appreciate it. If you appreciate the show, I'd appreciate you subscribe. So until next week, as always, folks, I want to say thank you guys very much for joining me. I've been Shawn King, and you've been listening to Your Mac Life. See ya!